So in this tutorial, you're going to learn how to split a single body into multiple bodies in Shapr3D. Now, in the previous tutorial of this series, I actually showed you a slightly more advanced way how to do this by converting a line into construction geometry and then using that line to make a cut through a solid body. But there are actually multiple ways to do this. So in this tutorial, I'm actually going to show you a more common method for splitting bodies in Shapr3D. So again, in the previous tutorial, we were working with this rocket shape right here. So if you haven't already downloaded this image, I've included a link to the image in the description below. So after downloading the image, simply click on Insert, then Image, and then add the image into your workspace. Now the image should be standing up properly along the front view of your design. So if by default it's not, like in my case, just make sure that you go to front view and then rotate the image by 90 degrees and then pull it up so that it's perfectly centered on your default axis. Now the center of the rocket should be located dead center in the middle of this axis line right here. Okay, with that done, notice these cut lines here and here. Now this is a really common detail in hardware design. Seems like these usually come from practical constraints. They mark where parts split for assembly, where molding or 3D printing size limits are going to force a break, or where drainage is going to need some type of gap. But designers also use these lines just strictly for design purposes as well. So seams help you do things like add visual interest or break up an otherwise flat or boring surface. Now to show you how common this is, I'm just going to quickly jump over into Lightloop here to show you some designs that I've been working on. So a really simple example is this lamp here. Notice this line running through the entire product right here. Or here you'll see some electronics housing with the same line cutting through it right here. Or take a look at this moon lander example here. Notice these lines cutting through the body like this. Or here is a slightly more advanced example of an Arduino case where I've cut through the body and then shrunk the cut part down to fit into this section here. And we don't always have to use straight lines like in the examples we've just looked at. We can also angle our line. So for example, take a look at this medical device here. Notice this line here is sloping downwards, and I'm going to show you how to do this in a minute as well. But just before jumping back into Shapr3D, remember, if you're a product designer and you'd like to learn how to create beautiful product images, videos, and 3D renders of your hardware concept, be sure to check us out over at Lightloop. We offer a design tool that can help you dramatically improve your product designs. You simply feed the tool some text, a rough sketch, or an image prompt, and the platform will generate professional grade marketing materials for you. So if this sounds interesting to you, you can find a link to Lightloop in the description below. Okay, so now let's jump back into Shapr3D. So here we have our rocket ready for us. So let's just quickly sketch out a cylinder here. So what I'll do here is I'll just select sketch and then rectangle, and then I'll ensure that rectangle diagonal is selected. And then I'll just roughly sketch out my rectangle shape right here. Okay, again, there are multiple ways to do this, and I showed you 3 different ways to create a cylinder in the last tutorial. But for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to sketch this out, and then we'll exit sketch mode. Now from here, we'll select the face of our rectangle, and then we'll either search for revolve using this search tool right here, or we can simply click on V on our keyboard. Next, we'll be prompted to do 2 things. First, we'll be prompted to select the face that we want to use. And second, we'll need to select the axis that we want to revolve the face around. Now, we've already selected our face, so that step is done. So what I'll do now is I will select this axis here, running up through our rocket. And then when I do that, I can select Done. Okay, so now we have our cylinder, but now we need to find a way to cut these lines right here through the cylinder. So that you can see this better, I'm actually just going to deactivate the cylinder shape for a moment, and now you'll see clearly these 2 lines that we're going to try to cut straight into this object. You'll see them right here and here. So let's get this to work. What we'll do here is we'll reactivate our cylinder shape, and then we'll click on this icon here for construct. And then what we'll do is we'll click on plane, and then we'll click on this option here for offset plane. Now this will allow us to position the plane wherever we want on this canvas. Okay, so after selecting offset plane, we have to complete 2 steps. The first step is to select the initial orientation of the plane. Now we want our plane lying flat, so we'll select this plane down here on the floor, so to speak, as our default reference plane. And then next what we'll do is we'll set the offset of the plane. So I'll just drag the plane up until I see that I'm close to where the lines are. Now notice that I can navigate around the canvas and zoom in and out to try to position this as accurate as possible. Okay, so now that I have this set, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on done. Now what we have to do is we have to do the same for the second line up here. So again, we'll click on construct, plane, and then offset plane. And then again, we'll just select our default plane to be this plane again down here. And then once we've done that, we'll offset the plane to align to this line on the rocket body up here. Okay, so now that we have our construction plane set up, what we can do now is we can create these lines using the split body tool. So what we'll do is we'll search for split body using this search tool right here, and then we'll select this split body option. And then what we'll do is we'll select the body that we want to split until the body turns blue. Now once the body is blue, we can then select the planes that we want to split this body with. So we'll select this plane here and this plane right here. So now you'll notice that your body is blue and the planes are purple. You'll also see a preview of the cut to the body that will be made. Now if everything looks good, simply click on done here. And now if we zoom out, what you'll see is that we were able to cut through this body and turn it into multiple parts. Now you'll see these multiple parts over in the sidebar here, which we can toggle on and off. And because these objects are individual bodies, we can now rename them and manipulate them individually as well. Notice that I can scale this body here or move it up and down without impacting the other bodies in the elements tree. Okay, but what if we wanted these cuts to be angled either upwards or downwards? Well, that's really simple to do as well. Remember over in Lightloop here when I showed you this medical device that had the cut gently sloping down? Well, let me show you how to do this over in Shapr3D. Let me just hit Control Z to undo all of my recent work until I get to the point just before where I made my cuts. Okay, so here we are. Now let's imagine that we don't want this cut here to be flat. Imagine instead we want it to slope gently downwards. So to do this, the workflow is really simple. All we need to do is grab the construction plane and then rotate it to our desired angle. Now once we have the angle set, we can then search for split body again and then follow the same steps as before. We simply select the body that we want to cut into until it's blue, and then we select the construction plane until it's purple. And then once we've done that, we just click on done, and now we have an angled cut. And of course, all of this split body logic that we've been talking about today does not only apply to cylinders. This logic works across all different types of geometry. Again, going back to Lightloop, we had this really simple electronic housing example here. Notice the line cutting through this object here, which creates a sort of lid. In fact, using the split body tool is a great way to create lids. So let me just quickly show you how to do this. So I'm just going to start with a fresh sketch here, and then I'm going to use center rectangle, and then I'm just going to create the rectangle and then extrude this up here. Next, I'm going to click on construct, and then I'll add a plane here, and then I'll select this option for offset plane. Now, you might need to toggle the visibility of your object off temporarily to be able to select the default base plane to create this line. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'm going to select this plane down here. And then once that is selected, what I'll do is I'll reactivate my shape. And then I'll go back over here and I'll drag my construction plane up to where I want to make the cut. And then once I'm ready, what I'll do is I'll select done. Next, what I'll do is I'll search for split body, and then I'll go through the same steps as before to separate the lid from the body. Remember, we want to target the body first, and then we want to select the plane that we want to use to kind of cut through this body or to split this body. Again, as you can see here, my body is blue and the plane is purple. And then once I have this set to my liking, what I can do is I can just select done over here. Now, as you can see, I can select the individual bodies from my elements tree over to the left. So what I'll do in this case is I'll just lift this lid off the main body object ever so gently here. And as you can see, we now have these two totally separate objects. Now, if we were truly creating a box, we might want to shell this out. So we could select this face here and then select H for shell, or we could just search for shell in the search box over here. And then we can shell this out to whatever value we want here. And then we can do the same to this top lid by simply selecting the face here and then hitting H on our keyboard in order to shell this out to the same shell width that we used for the base. So hopefully that gives you a good understanding of how to split bodies in Shapr3D. And remember, before moving on to the next tutorial in the series, be sure to check us out at Lightloop. We have a huge assortment of tools that help product designers create better products and market those products during the idea conceptualization stage to customers, partners, investors, and so on. In Lightloop, you can create beautiful product images, videos, 2D CAD sketches, and 3D renders of your product. Again, a link to Lightloop can be found in the description below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thanks for stopping by today, and I hope to see you over in the next one.